On the same day, the Dow plunged into bear market territory. It was all about a party at the White House, Sir Elton John serenading President and First Lady Biden and a crowd on the White House lawn. And it's not just the stock market that plunged this week. So is the money in everyone's wallets. A new study finding the average American has lost more than $4,000 a year in income since Biden took office, erasing the $4,000 gains from when Trump was in office. Republican leaders now making the economy a priority as we count down 45 days until the midterms. The key goals of the Commitment to America are advance a parent's Bill of Rights, fund border security, crack down on leftist prosecutors, and curb wasteful government spending.
We can secure our border. We could become energy independent, where your price of gas is lower. We can build an education system that has a parent's Bill of Rights, that you have a say in your kid's education. And we could be a check and balance on the rein in this government that's going after the individuals. If you believe like us, join with us, because this job won't be easy.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi instead focusing on MAGA Republicans in her response to the rollout of the plan, saying, quote, today's rollout is the latest evidence of House Republicans' wholehearted commitment to MAGA, going all in on an extremist agenda designed to greatly diminish Americans' health, freedom, and security. This alarming new extreme MAGA platform threatens to criminalize women's health care, slash seniors' Medicare, and raise prescription drug prices and attack our free and fair elections. Guy, I'm going to go to you first. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin really got to the heart of what I think, if not all of the polls, most of the polls are hitting on and where Americans are right now and what's front and center in their minds. Take a listen.
Yeah, they're most concerned about inflation. They're most concerned about the fact that they're seeing this silent thief that was let loose by the Biden administration steal their hard-earned money. Grocery prices have escalated at double digits. And all of a sudden, Virginians, and I think Americans, are really starting to worry.
Yeah, and he's backing up real numbers there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is bread and butter messaging for the Republicans. This is the number one issue. It should be the number one issue. I will say this, though. I had Youngkin on my radio show this week, and something that we talked about was one of the major focuses of his campaign that allowed him to win in Virginia was education. And we have not had, I keep saying this, a national referendum on COVID policies and education since all of it happened. This is the first national election with an opportunity for parents and others to render a verdict on what a lot of Democrats did, a lot of harm to kids all over this country. So I'm glad that the House Republicans have put that front and center as one of their big four items in this new agenda that they've rolled out. And one other very quick point, the statement from Pelosi that you read. Oh. I think that it completely undermines the point that they're trying to make about dangerous MAGA Republicans and democracy and election denial, whatever that point is. If you're going to then conflate just normal Republican policies with that, you completely take the wind out from the sails, that you're at least the point that you're trying to make. And they keep making that same mistake. And I think a lot of Americans tune out because they should tune out. They don't believe this stuff.
They've made that mistake since 2016 with President Trump. I mean, every little thing they could call a misstep with President Trump, their hair's on fire to the extent that he becomes more popular because people go, I can't buy what you're selling if you're telling me every time the man acts like himself that he's going to destroy the world. And they're bringing that same mentality into this election. And you talk about a nationwide referendum on what the Democrats did over COVID. I mean, 2020 was kind of that because Republicans picked up seats in a lot of places through that election. Obviously, President Trump didn't win, but Republicans got stronger down the line in a lot of state houses over that issue. So it wasn't nationwide, but across the nation, we saw state houses go red over those issues exactly.
Well, and Lara, I have to mention this because we saw Elton John there playing at the White House, and it's hard not to remember that he declined to play for former President Trump in 2017 for the inauguration. However, he did play at his wedding, which is interesting.
It is interesting. I think it's a sign of the times. It's interesting that in 2005, he had no problem, going and playing for my father-in-law and Melania at their wedding. Now you fast forward to 2017, he doesn't want to get involved, but he's happy to go there with Joe and Jill Biden. It's very interesting. I thought it was a very Marie Antoinette moment for me. The whole scene there where you have the Dow, below 30,000, right? We have obviously an inflation issue that's not going anywhere, but that's not even being addressed or talked about in any way, by and large, by the Democrats. And there they are being serenaded. It's beautiful by Elton John. It must be nice. This after the inflation party they just had the
with
other
James
week.
Taylor.
Yes.
Right? They need to stop
amazing.
booking these.
Only this administration could put Elton John and tone deaf in the same sentence, right? I mean, that's what it,
Totally.
What is happening here.
Exactly
and
right.
it's a complete misunderstanding of where Americans really are. They think Americans are outraged over the issues that they're championing, when Americans are just outraged over allow us to live our lives, to give us an opportunity to take advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about the November elections, and we've seen, I wouldn't call it momentum, but we've seen just a teeny tiny shift for Democrats, do you think that there's a danger here for Republicans in any of this if they can't keep their eye on the ball with inflation?
Sure.
I think Americans, I think Americans see this word inflation and they don't get. They don't get excited over President Biden saying, oh, it's just an inch. And I think they see this word inflation. They don't get upset over everything Republicans put out there. I think when we sit here in a pretty comfortable place ourselves and talk about inflation, we have to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what that means. Republicans' biggest mistake, I think, was to hone in on gas prices for so long. Like to make inflation all about one thing, rather than take a step back. When we talk about what's happening with our economy, the housing market may be in a bubble that's going to bust. It's going to hurt a lot of people. All right, that's one thing. Another thing is just options that are available. You might be able to afford a new car, but the company you want to buy it from can't make it. You got to wait 6 months to get it. So the used version of that car is $20,000 more than a new one because that's the only one you can buy. And you follow that all the way down the line. If you run a backhoe or do anything in construction for a living, a tool breaks, you can't replace that tool, because the people that make that tool had supply chain issues for the last year. And to be in charge of a government that couldn't see any of this coming or try to do anything about it, all of that is what Americans are dealing with, and then inflation is on top of that.
Well, and now we have this commitment to America by House Republicans. It was just released. And Newt Gingrich, the former House Speaker who in 1994 came out with the House Republicans version ahead of midterms with his contract with America. He wrote an op-ed for Fox News titled "Why House Republicans' Commitment to America is a Big Deal." And in it, he writes, "The American people will get to choose soon. Their choices will be the failures of big government, socialism, or a commitment to America to restore the systems, principles, and values that will make us safer, more prosperous and secure. I believe Americans will choose the commitment over the failures." Guy, you and I have covered midterms for years. Do you think Americans are paying attention to the details in this?
Probably not, would be my guess. I mean, it's good for them to put it out. As I said, I like elements of it. I think that they've focused on the right things here. I'm not sure this is a game changer, but it is a sort of positive agenda that they can point to. It might be enough. To your previous question, it might be enough for Republicans just to sit back and say, hey, America, how's this feeling about now? Don't like it? Vote for us. That could be sufficient for them to win a House majority, for example. But to be able to point at least to a document to say, they're scaring you about us. Here's what we actually believe. This is what we're going to prioritize. I think that's the right move for them to do here. And I do think that the risk for Republicans and Republican voters is to believe what they've been hearing for the last year, which is it's automatic. This is a layup. It's going to be a red wave. And that needs to be manifested in real life through action, not just assumed to take place, because you need turnout.
And Lara, you understand the dynamics. The 45 days before the election, so much can happen.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Guy, I think you pinpointed it and you said it exactly right. We cannot sit back and take anything for granted. As Republicans, we have to motivate people to get out and vote. That's ultimately what is going to make the difference here. People have to get out, they have to vote. And what I liked about this commitment to America was that it at least addressed so many concerns I think that people have that the Democrats are just failing to even talk about in many respects. At least you have the Republicans here saying, we want to address the problems that we know you have right now. We want to at least say we see them and here's our plan. Because I think a lot of people look at the Democrats and, of course, there's key issues they love to talk about, like abortion. Man, they'll talk about that all day. But they never really talk about the day-to-day issues that the American people feel. And so I did like that point of all of this, but I think you're right. We got to keep our eye on the prize, foot on the gas all the way to November.
They have to be able to pull from it and make it parochial. They have to make it make sense at the local level. A state like Georgia, where Brian Kemp and Herschel Walker are two most popular conservatives in Georgia right now, two very different bases for those because of the Trump element. So this idea that you can just put something nationally out there and win in this big red wave, you're going to have to go to the state and find the issues that matter in those areas.
And I will say quickly, unsolicited friendly advice for the Democrats in the White House. When there's another scheduled release of economic data, maybe don't schedule a fireworks display for that night,
Yeah.
right?
No,
just a thought.
I have a point there, Guy. Absolutely.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.